Anakin was a bad guy. And frankly, I'm tired of pretending otherwise. No matter the canon, no matter how you spin it, Anakin was a bad guy. There are more colourful words I could use, but let's just say it. He was evil. Look at it this way. Anakin was 22 years old when he became Darth Vader. At the time of his death upon the Death Star, he was 45. Anakin lived most of his life as an enforcer of the Emperor, committing multiple genocides, killing innocent people, and just all round being a horrible guy. Anakin deciding he's had enough and tossing the Emperor to his death does not erase all that he's done. I'd barely call it a step on the path of redemption. In fact, he's pretty much irredeemable. I do not separate the identities of Anakin and Vader. To me, they are one and the same person. We see a few examples of Anakin throughout the series showing his darker side. This wasn't a case of split personality. The darkness was always there in Anakin, he just lacked the moral fibre to keep it at bay. And when he had lost everything, decided to throw in his lot with the Emperor. To support this, all I would say is look at the other Sith Lords. Do we make a distinction between Palpatine and Sidious? No. We believe they are one and the same. Dooku and Tyrannus. Maul and Maul? We accept that this is who those people are, and in the case of Dooku, you could argue the dark side amplifies an arrogance that was always there. But it was still always there. If we went through the prequel trilogy, film by film, and explained Anakin's actions by the end of Revenge of the Sith, would be throwing the book at him and sending him to prison. So, let's do that. I'm going to stress, I am only looking at the prequel trilogy. These films came out before the Clone Wars TV show, and if they can't tell the story of Anakin's fall on their own, then that's on them and not me. Starting with The Phantom Menace. This is an odd film because we meet Anakin when he's around 9. Not really many issues with his portrayal in this film, hardly anything you would class as a red flag, although the most interesting thing is what Lucas decided to cut, which was Anakin's little dust-up with Greedo. The reason for its removal was just to keep the film ticking along, but it was interesting to see a glimpse of Anakin's temper. But as a 9-year-old, it's hardly a red flag. Kids are kids, they get into scraps, so it's hardly a glimpse of him being a bad egg. It's within Attack of the Clones where we get a greater glimpse of who Anakin is. He's awkward.
Grown more beautiful, I mean.
Brash.
Why? What? Why else do you think we were assigned to her if not to find the killer?
And obsessive.
I've thought about her every day since we've parted, and she's forgotten me completely.
And this is displayed all in one scene. In the space of 3 minutes, we understand Anakin's a rebellious teen who's obsessed with a girl he met 10 years ago. Anakin's also a kid on the edge, plagued with nightmares about his mother, and outrageously reckless with little patience.
Forgot you don't like flying.
I don't mind flying, but what you're doing is suicide!
Some of this you can put down to his age and unorthodox upbringing. He's had a massive amount of upheaval in his life, from being a slave on Tatooine for 9 years, to leaving his mother and joining the Jedi Order where you're supposed to suppress your feelings in favour of looking at things more pragmatically. That's not all though. Anakin has fallen under the sway of Palpatine, who encourages Anakin's rebellious streak and to trust his feelings, which often puts him at odds with Obi-Wan and the Jedi doctrine.
His abilities have made him, well, arrogant.
Lucas is often criticised for his writing, and rightly so, but he does establish Anakin's characteristics, and in hindsight you can see all the attributes that will get him in trouble later on, even within the same film.
Now! No, Anakin, no! No!
Lucas also makes sure to hammer home that these are not exceptional circumstances for Anakin that's bringing out this behaviour in him. He was like this before the film and often butts heads with Obi-Wan.
We will not go through this exercise again, Anakin. And you will pay attention to my lead. We will do exactly as the Council has instructed. And you will learn your place, young one.
We've been presented how Anakin handles his emotions, but what does he believe in? We get a glimpse of that during the infamous field scene on Naboo, where he wants politicians to sit down and figure things out for the best of the people. And if they can't agree, well
then they should be made to.
He then adds a cheeky endorsement for a dictatorship, though I can't quite tell if he was being an edgelord here.
Sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship to me.
Well, if it works.
But he's 19, so it kinda tracks. The issue with this though is Anakin isn't your everyday teenager. He's the prophesized chosen one. He has a lot of power and responsibility on his shoulders, and considering this is what he might believe, well, it doesn't bode well. Was this Palpatine's teachings, Anakin's rough upbringing? Who knows? But this is what he believes, and it may change as he gets older, but at this moment, in Attack of the Clones, this is it. A lot of this has been establishing who Anakin is, how he feels, what he believes in, but now we're about to dig into how he reacts to a situation and dealing with loss. On Tatooine, Anakin finds his mother who had been kidnapped by Tusken Raiders, and she dies in his arms. This might be the first time in Anakin's life that he feels he's failed and has to deal with consequences. It's a heartbreaking scene and probably some of Hayden's best acting in the series. But he failed in saving his mom, and it's his first real taste of adversity because he doesn't know how to process what's happening. It's like in RoboCop where Alex has a freakout because his directives have a conflict. Right here, right now, Anakin resorts to giving into his feelings and slaughters a tribe of Tusken Raiders. Context is super important here. I understand why Anakin did what he did. Looking at the state of his mother, who was kidnapped 4 weeks prior, she's still rather beaten up, has fresh wounds, and is tied up. You can make assumptions of what has gone down and the conditions she's lived in. I get his fury, it stems from a place of righteous vengeance. I understand his slaughter of the Tusken Raiders. I can't say I would have handled things much better if I had his abilities. It's a total loss of control, and he murders more than just the men. He slaughters the entire tribe, including the children. I have to stress though, I don't hold this one against him because of the extenuating circumstances. But you would hope Anakin learns from this and gains self-restraint. Anakin does, however, express a variety of emotions where he confesses to Padme. He doesn't regret killing the Tusken Raiders, in fact he dehumanizes them and compares them to animals. This could have been him trying to cope with what he's done. That is the big moment for Anakin in the film. The way he talks about wanting to be the most powerful Jedi, how he's going to stop people from dying, it's almost childlike, it's almost a regression. Then he goes on to blame Obi-Wan.
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back!
And it's totally almost unrelated to what's happened. He's doing everything he can do to deflect and not talk about what he's just done. In terms of writing and looking at the broader picture of Anakin's fall, I think Lucas missed a trick in that one of Anakin's motivations for falling to the dark side could have been the Jedi way, causing him to lose everything he held dear. He was clearly very incompatible with their ways. He loves Obi-Wan, but he's very resentful of him, and that does happen for some teenagers and their parental figures. But beginning to lean into the idea of revenge, that the Jedi stopped him from saving his mom, and he won't let them stop him from saving Padme, I think there's deeper material there that wasn't mined. Of course, his recklessness and impatience costs him later on as he charges at Dooku and he gets a reality check in the finer arts of lightsaber dueling, and where his power really is at. The loss of Anakin's arm in Attack of the Clones metaphorically represents his descent towards the dark side. You could argue and say it's the universe's way of making Anakin pay a form of penance, and a constant reminder of the choices he's made this film. A lesson he unfortunately never learns from. Anakin, physically and emotionally, has lost a part of himself in Attack of the Clones, and Lucas has previously used robotic arms as a way of connecting protagonists to the dark side. Luke looks at his own robotic hand after he's defeated Vader, and realizes if he strikes his fallen foe in anger or in hate, then he will become the thing he swore to defeat. Now we move on to the biggie. And that's Revenge of the Sith, where this really does solidify how evil Anakin is. There is not a test in this film that Anakin does not fail. After he disarms Dooku, he is presented with a chance to spare the Sith Lord and take him hostage. As impractical as that might have been, without Palpatine there, Anakin may have spared him. But if all it took was a little nudge from Palpatine to cross that line and execute Dooku, I think that's more indicative of Anakin's character. Throughout this film, Anakin has choices he needs to make. He's a desperate man, but for every choice he makes, he does the wrong thing. And yet he's never really strong-armed into committing acts that range from bad decisions to just outright atrocities throughout the film. That's key. Anakin often says it's not the Jedi way. But what Anakin never realizes, and for the most part neither do the fans, is that Anakin isn't a Jedi. He breaks the code on a daily basis. He does not follow it. He's a Jedi in name only because his actions are the complete opposite of what a Jedi should be. Ironically, he's called the hero with no fear, but Anakin's driven by fear all the time. He can't bear to lose those closest to him, and that's natural, but he's living a constant lie on multiple levels, and that's mainly on him because of his desires and selfishness. He's at war with himself, which brings us to this pivotal scene. Why does Anakin do this? He believes Palpatine has the power to save Padme and he needs him alive. It's not because killing an unarmed prisoner is bad, it's because he needs to save Padme. Of course, Palpatine suddenly gets an adrenaline rush and throws Windu out the window. This isn't Anakin viewing the Jedi ideology as wrong, or taking into account the context of the situation, a person who refuses to surrender. It's purely wanting Palpatine alive for personal gain. Anakin flips through his excuse book to take Palpatine in.
He must stand trial. It's not the Jedi way. He must live.
Before he finally admits,
I need him.
Of course, Anakin does feel regret for all of 5 seconds for Windu's death and commits himself to Palpatine's side. There was still time to pull out the situation. Anakin, throughout this film, has multiple opportunities to take a different route and picks the wrong one every time. What we actually do need to address is that Anakin is also an idiot of the highest order.
What?
The kid clearly overcompensated with his midichlorian count because his IQ is the polar opposite. Imagine agreeing with Palpatine on this. I believe you are the only Jedi without any knowledge of this plot. When the Jedi learn of this plot, they will kill all the senators. Let's pause right here. Anakin, you've been fighting a galactic-wide war for the last 3 years. Why? Because the Confederacy of Independent Systems wanted to break free of the Republic, a movement which was led by Count Dooku. But you and the Jedi were informed that a high-up Republic official is a Sith Lord who controls the Senate, which caused the Naboo blockade issue 10 years prior. Dooku was a Sith Lord and his master was likely this Darth Sidious. Your now wife had multiple assassination attempts against her life because she tried to fight the motion to build a Republic army. Your pal Palpatine has just told you where the Confederacy leadership is and that Newt Gunray needs to be silenced. For obvious reasons, because he knows the truth of it all. Anakin knows Sidious is the Sith Lord they've been looking for.
You're the Sith Lord.
Yes, the one we've been looking for.
That has been realistically controlling both sides and accumulating more and more power for the last 13 years, and he just kinda shrugs and says, yeah, sure, let's do it. The icing on the cake is where he executes a bunch of younglings. Do I really need to explain just how bad this was? Did Anakin think every Jedi knew of this plot and they managed to just keep hush-hush around him so not to spill the secret? He then returns to Padme, who asks him about Obi-Wan, and he responds with, many Jedi have been killed. I can only hope that he remains loyal to the Chancellor. My man, you know Palpatine has said no Jedi should be left alive. This is a genocidal act that is being utilized here and you're one of the leading members in it. Anakin knows what's happening but doesn't want to acknowledge the personal cost. That his father figure is on the other side of the conflict to him and he knows. He's actively avoiding the topic with Padme because she's going to disagree with him. He hasn't even admitted to his role at the Jedi Temple.
What about Obi-Wan?
I don't know. Many Jedi have been killed.
Anakin proceeds to mercilessly execute the Separatist leadership who actually welcomed him to their humble abode on Mustafar, before having a little cry on the balcony. I'll go out on a limb here and say he's crying because he understands what he's done in the past 24 hours and it's all catching up to him. For me, this cements the idea that Vader and Anakin are the same person. Anakin didn't just become Darth Vader because Palpatine anointed him as such and Anakin's personality vanished. Anakin is still there, just with a new title. Padme arrives on Mustafar and confronts Anakin, who actually deflects her questions about him killing younglings.
Killed younglings?
Obi-Wan is trying to turn you against me.
Then he rambles on about his mission to gain power to save Padme, and he's done it all for her, which he hasn't. He's done it for himself. He wants Padme to live for him. Padme does try to bring Anakin back, letting him know she can't follow him down this dark path, and he responds with,
Because of Obi-Wan.
I actually can't. This level of delusion is actually melting my brain. Anakin refuses to accept responsibility for his actions and is always deflecting and blaming everyone else. He refuses to see the truth and he's conjured up his own warped narrative to justify himself. Padme wholly believes in the democratic process, and the fact he wants himself and her to rule the galaxy just shows a fundamental misunderstanding of his wife. Near the apex of his duel with Obi-Wan, the Jedi Master confesses to Anakin that he has failed him, and Anakin retorts with,
I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over.
and then delivers this chestnut that he thinks the Jedi are evil. Honestly, I think our boy needs testing for CTE, but at least Obi-Wan says what we're all thinking.
Well, then you are lost!
Obi-Wan then ends the duel and delivers his monologue, only for Anakin to respond with, I hate you! This just sums up Anakin as a whole. A man who in one film, when presented with all the pieces and evidence, decided to twist the narrative to fit his objectives and selfish desires, who throws away whatever morals and relationships he had to murder children, partake in a genocide, and usurp a newly established empire, and all of this was previously alluded to. Anakin as a man did have some good deeds, but for the next 23 years he helped a fascist empire built on a foundation of lies thrive, facilitated another genocide and maybe more, killed on a whim, used whatever tactics he had to achieve his objectives, such as torturing people, ruling through fear, because that's all he had left. His own bitterness, hate and fear. If someone thinks that killing Palpatine in Return of the Jedi was his redemption, I think you're mistaken. That does not wipe away all the evil he's done for the last 23 years. It's once again Anakin's selfish desires that overrides him and allows him to kill Palpatine to save his son. You could say it's love, but then you'd have to examine what Anakin thinks is love.
Compassion, which I would define as unconditional love, is central to a Jedi's life.
You could argue he thinks of it as possessing people. The man does have a record of being obsessed with people. First Padme, then Luke. To really hammer home this example, in World War II, a Nazi general who had partook in Hitler's war and genocide furthered his cause, but then decided at the last minute to turn and kill Hitler. Would you think that redeems them? The right answer is no, it wouldn't. So why would we think it redeemed Anakin? His story isn't one of redemption. It's tragedy of wasted potential, and at the end it was Luke, not Anakin, who brought balance. It's Luke's mercy and desire to be better which leads to his subsequent triumph. Luke is everything Anakin would have wanted to be. Luke goes through his own trauma but always pulls back. You could never imagine Luke going on a murderous rampage because that's just not who he is deep down. For Anakin to be redeemed, he would have to face justice, but he hasn't. If Anakin had repented after his defeat to Obi-Wan, you could maybe argue that his punishment of losing everything and living in that suit with chronic pain for the rest of his life might have been suitable. But he didn't. He continued to murder people and push the agenda of the Empire. One thing that's super important to note is that this is all by design. Anakin was supposed to be a powerful Jedi, but he was supposed to have his issues that led to his downfall. He wasn't supposed to be this character that was faultless and beloved, because at the end of the day, he's supposed to have this fall. That's partially why I think the fans are repelled by the idea of Luke in The Last Jedi, because it just doesn't seem to track as well with what we've previously seen. Whilst with Anakin, we know he ends up in the suit, and whilst in the suit, he can be rather petty and ruthless. All traits he shares pre-suit. In Lucas's own words,
he would have been revealed to be this pathetic character at the end of the movie.